I first started to get into projection in college. I was working in audio at that time, recording bands and doing live sound for productions, both freelance and for graduate students and things like that. And then I started to get into production when I helped, it was really small stuff, just kind of like help the teacher or TA show class films on screen, because I knew how to work a projector, like some of those small ones, and just kind of do Blu-ray screenings and computer screenings, things like that. Along with audio production, I was also in a post-production track, so I knew a lot about exporting and getting things ready and aspect ratios and stuff like that. Which helped me when I got an internship at the Austin Film Society in 2011, right after college.
Right on.
We had a screening room back then, and back then they used to rent that out. And it got rented out quite a bit, but they didn't really have any designated person to run it, so they just relied on intern help. So for $20 an hour, basically they just had me run small single reel 35, sometimes for people that made 35 back then, which was rare even then, and mostly computer files and Blu-rays. And then I managed that screening room for 2 years when I became office manager, and then when I started working in programming at AFS, that's when I started working with the Alamo guys and the Paramount guys, not actually projecting there, but just working with them. And then in 2013, we partnered with the Marquesa, which is the old tenant of the Austin Film Society Cinema. And I ran print traffic, which means making sure that our prints or our films, whether they be digital or 35, got here, were shown correctly, and then were shipped out. I did everything that was digital, and we hired Alamo Projectionists to do 35, whom I helped oversee with our then partner, or person that I worked with, Laura Morgan, who's no longer here. But then when we became the sole tenant of this building, which is the old Lincoln Theater in the Lincoln Village just outside of Highland Mall, we shut down for about 8 months, renovated, and then that's when I became the manager of all of the 35, all of the digital, all of the rentals that come through here for both audio and video needs, and basically general IT manager for the space. When you have a reel up on the rewind bench and you're running through 35 and you pull that little strip and you put it up against a flashlight to inspect it, or a source of light, and you see those still images, that's when it all becomes crystal clear that what you're projecting is literally 24 still frames per second. You know, there's a famous line in Slacker where he says, you know, film's just photography, just 24 frames, or 24 times per second, and that's exactly what it is. Everything, all the jobs in Hollywood, all the millions of dollars, all the lighting crews, all the actors going through years and years of training, it all crystals down, or all boils down to that single image that you're holding in your hand. And then you have the power to make sure that that gets set up properly on a reel and run for people down there in the audience that, you know, if you weren't there, just wouldn't be able to see it. You know, that's why I think people have gotten a high from projecting since cinema was born. You know, it's like when you're holding a piece of film in your hand, you know that what's on that strip is the exact light that was reflected off those people's faces and captured in a piece of chemical film strip, basically. That we were smart enough to realize that if you formulate chemicals in a certain way, you can capture the exact moment in time a piece of light bounced off of Greta Garbo's face, you know, and you can see that. That's why 35 millimeter is really cool. But I also think that this whole trend towards digital has been not underrated, but I think unjustly attacked by some film purists. Digital is just another tool in what you can use to, one, tell your story, edit your story better, make it cleaner, and also it helped boost, digital projection helped boost the standards for all cinema around the country. I mean, you remember back in a time that every single theater in the world had to show 35 millimeter. Any number of those projectionists. I mean, it's hard now to this day because most of you run archive prints, but back then, I mean, you know, a high school student could accidentally show a film print and then stop it suddenly and then have the film print explode, or a film print could break, or people could show reels out of order, which happens, so there was a huge varying degree of quality between, say, like a premiere theater in LA and then a small podunk thing in, wherever, Illinois or Kansas or something like that, because the technology was harder to maintain, and the level of quality of a projectionist could sometimes vary greatly. What digital projection has done has evened that out in a lot of places and allowed a more standards-based approach to, as long as you're hitting this level of brightness with this level of sound, you're going to get exactly what you're supposed to get from the studios in Hollywood. So I believe, the reason why I keep doing it is because I believe strongly in what we do. I think there is a place for art house film and for all of the smaller festivals that get 86'd out of the bigger corporate things. People that want to have a direct connection with film are able to come here and watch it in the best technical possibility, and then afterwards talk about it with fellow film nerds. That's basically why Richard Linklater started it, and that's why we're still doing it to this day. And Rick comes out to many screenings throughout the week too, because he also believes in the mission. And so, because when you have somebody like that to look up to, it really helps you get through the day-to-day BS and really recognize that you still have this higher goal that you're hoping to achieve, which is really nice. And just in terms of art house cinema as a whole, I feel very strongly that it's a position in the marketplace that's growing, actually, despite the overall trend, because I think art house cinemas help carry the torch with a lot of films that people still want to see in theaters, especially old black and white films and things like that that might be on Netflix or on the Criterion channel, but people probably, especially of our age, just have a lot of distractions, so they want to go to a place where they can sit down and have nothing else in front of them except that piece of art, basically, and they can watch it in great picture, hopefully, which we provide, and in great sound. And I think it just adds up to the overall quality of the art and the vision that the director wanted to present. And we have a programmer here, Lars Nielsen, who says that cinema is the highest form of art. And I'm not sure if I'd go that far with it, but it's up there for sure, because it encompasses everything: music, image, acting, just social awareness, everything you can think of, because it's basically stories, which are the oldest art form there ever is, and bundling it in a way that is accessible to everybody. Because at the end of the day, everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what your knowledge level or anything, you still have the ability to sit in a chair and watch a screen for 2 hours. And that is what I think makes cinema probably, and why video production as a whole, as an industry, is growing, because it's getting easier to make your own stuff, it's getting easier for people to tell their stories, and it's something that everybody has an innate ability to understand. And so I think that, and the numbers also show it too, that despite a lot of trends, independent art house cinemas are growing, because it's getting easier for mom and pop shops to buy digital projectors, set them up, and then show films. And also, cinemas are getting smarter in how they diversify their income streams, so that they are able to have events and things like that that bring in more money. So it's not just, and we're the same way. We don't just make our money on films. We also make our money in rentals, because we have a big hall that we rent out. We make our money on corporate events, music performances, things like that. And other art houses are starting to do that as well. You're starting to see more directors come out to screenings, more Q&As, more community-sponsored events where people come together and collaborate. And that's what a lot of people do to survive, and it's working.